Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you by us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined as ever fresh from St Andrews at Knighthead Park by our Birmingham City writer Alex Dicken. You've been meeting some very important people today, Alex. Tell us, we might as well just go straight into it and tell us what you've been doing this morning.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it, Brian? This morning, very early this morning, at about seconds past midnight, Birmingham City announced that they had agreed to, Knighthead, the owners had agreed to purchase the Wheels site, and that was all going through. So that's going to be the new base for the sports quarter that we've probably been hearing about for the last, I think, 2 or 3 months. That's now come to fruition. They've got the Wheels site, obviously a 48-acre plot, and they're going to build a stadium, a training facility for all 3 of their teams, men, women, and the academies as well, and obviously academy facilities and things. So there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. We're going to go into some of the details later, but yes, I've been down at St Andrews this morning, early afternoon. I've not long been back, to be honest, at the time of recording. Just speaking to Tom Wagner about his plans for the sports quarter at the old vacant Wheels site, and what it's going to look like. I think we've all kind of grasped that Tom Wagner is a very ambitious man, but I think today, after speaking to him, I've probably come away thinking he's a lot more ambitious than I thought he was.
Yeah, I think the scale of just even daring to think some of the thoughts that Tom Wagner is thinking, it's so out with our experience of covering Birmingham City and surviving in the championship by needing to win against Huddersfield. And Tom Wagner's talking about sports quarters and Champions League finals and all this sort of thing. It's just, yeah, I have to say I'm suffering from Birmingham City whiplash at the moment. You watch the matches and you come away disappointed at another late goal. And then you listen to Tom Wagner speak, and it feels like the world is our oyster, and nothing's going to stop us as long as we can stop conceding last minute goals. You were at St Andrews today. Just paint the picture, please, Alex. What whereabouts in the stadium were you? Who else was there? What was the setup?
Yeah, it's in the Alliance, because that's where they host their most important guests, isn't it? Got that?
and you were there as well.
It's in the Alliance. Obviously, that it's nice in there. I've been there before, to be fair. I know that's where they obviously host the commercial partners and things like that. People who actually put money into the club, not the freeloaders like you and I. In there, Tom Wagner came in. Gary Cook was also there. Gary Cook wasn't doing interviews today. It was mainly about Wagner and his plans. So he sat down, and I think he was supposed to give us kind of a bit of an introduction as to kind of what they'd done and things, and about the Wheels project. But he basically just sat down and said, "You guys are here to ask me questions. We might as well just kick off straight away." And, it was about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I think, between 3 of us written journalists, myself included, before, it dispersed and Wagner went round and did various TV interviews, radio interviews. And I think I was working there until about 1 o'clock, and he had only just finished interviews. So it was a busy day for him, an hour and a half of interviews. And of course, he's got that open house tonight, where he's going to speak to a group of fans for, I think, around 2 hours. So I think he's done another thing this morning as well. So he has been a very busy man today, but it was good to hear from him. And like you said, Brian, you can't help but be impressed when you listen to him. He's so kind of polished and measured in everything he says. And even when he says these really ambitious things, you tend to believe it because it's him who's saying them.
Yeah, indeed. Again, my Birmingham City trust issues kick in a little bit when somebody promises me something nice. I'm kind of wondering what they want in return. But there's no subterfuge about this. Is Tom Wagner stood front and center in front of a camera, in front of journalists, answering questions. It is front and center, and he clearly absolutely believes it, and it clearly seems totally determined to deliver on a massive stadium and training facilities in the city centre and what was the phrase he used? The entertainment side of things. I mean, I find eating very entertaining, so I'm down for a bit of that. Yeah, so it's difficult not to be swept up. I suppose it is our job to ask questions a little bit as well, isn't it? And just pump the brakes a little bit. But you know, I suppose we have to admit that if you take away what's happening with the first team, the words are being backed up by actions at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, I genuinely can't criticise anything that's happened off the field this season in terms of what they've done with the stadium. Obviously, both training grounds, given that they inherited Wast Hills in a state of disrepair caused by that fire about just over a year ago. They've obviously moved very quickly to get the wheel site, and there was obviously a bit of competition for that as well. So they've done well there, and they've got a site that they can build this sports quarter. That sounds so grand, doesn't it? This sports quarter in the heart of Birmingham, which is going to be, I mean, the phrase they're using is beacon of excellence, which I think it's not really just applied to football, is it? As you just touched on, it's going to be, you know, potentially eating as well, entertainment with you know, music artists, and you know, Wagner touched on the fact that he would like a stadium that's big enough to hold other big sporting events. He mentioned the World Cup. He mentioned the Champions League. I'm not sure whether he means, you know, Blues in the Champions League there or hosting the Champions League final. He mentioned NFL, which obviously with the Tom Brady link, it seemed like an absolute no-brainer, and lots of other things. So, you know, it's clear the ambition's there. I think, like you said, Brian, we've got to probably take these things with a pinch of salt, because in football you do get a lot of, especially owners who come in and say all these things. But, you know, as far as off the field goes, Wagner has talked the talk, but he's so far probably walked the walk. Obviously, we're going to see how it all transpires over the next 5 years, which is the time frame that he's given the people who are building this stadium, you know, to get it kind of up and running, so Blues can start the 29-30 season in this new stadium. But everything you hear from him on the non-football side has been very good, and you just hope that there have been mistakes made, you know, in the football side of things this season. We know that appointing Wayne Rooney in place of John Hughes was a big mistake, and it didn't work out. 9 defeats in 15 games tells us that, and the fact Blues, you know, dropped so suddenly in the league and haven't been able to really recover from that decision. And it, you know, it could cost them. It could result in them being in League One next season unless results improve over these final 5 games. But, you know, you take the non-football stuff and you can only be impressed. You've just got to hope that Blues can cling on to their championship status in these final 5 games. So the project, or whatever we call it now, isn't delayed slightly. You know, when I asked Wagner that question actually about when he mentioned 5 years before the team's in the new stadium is what he hopes, I said, you know, would getting relegated to League One change that? And he said no. I said, are you sure? And he goes, not at all. So you know, he's clearly got a vision, and you know, if Blues are in League One, then he probably sees it as just a bump in the road. Obviously, that would depend on how quickly Blues got out of League One if they do indeed end up there. But it feels like the only way he sees Blues and Birmingham as a city going is up, and it's refreshing given what's happened in the 11, 12 years before his arrival.
Yeah, forward is the expression associated with the city, isn't it? And
yeah,
he certainly seems absolutely determined to just overcome whatever bumps there are in the road. You know, we can talk about keeping right on and cliches like that, can't we? But yeah, it's just that, just the fact that he's so open and confident and almost thinks that speaking into existence will make it happen is just what is so stark. And I guess I'm coming from an experience with an ownership group that were mute, you know. So I think there's an element of that about it as well. So you mentioned the 5 years there. What other specifics did you get out? Because he did give some specifics, didn't he? It wasn't all, you know, flying a kite and clappy clappy. There were some specifics about this. What can you tell us? What sort of flesh did he put on the bones?
Yeah, so it's obviously going to take time, and he said the planning is already underway, and that he's got meetings. I think he said he's got a meeting in London very shortly that will obviously help with that. He made out like, you know, there's going to be a hotel potentially housing and things like that, as well as obviously, you mentioned the entertainment earlier. The impression I got was that it's not, Birmingham City is going to probably be a fraction. Birmingham City first team matches is going to probably make up a fraction of this stadium's income. In that there is going to be so much going on there. It's going to be a very busy stadium. If it all goes to plan, there are going to be lots of other events happening there. He even discussed the idea of having a mini stadium, which I think is something they've done at the Camp Nou and other grounds abroad. He made a big point actually as well about how important it is for the women to have this base in this heart of the city as well, and obviously the academy for all the children that can't venture out to Wast Hills for a weeknight training session. To have that kind of easy access into the city centre will be absolutely crucial. It will also help Blues attract these very talented young players who, instead of them going to Aston Villa, who we know have already got that kind of inner city academy in the works now. So yeah, there was a lot more going on than just football, to be honest. It was quite refreshing to hear these plans for Birmingham as a whole and what they're planning to do with it. But ultimately, the success that the stadium and the sports quarter will bring will hopefully see the revenue of Birmingham City increased, and that will hopefully see the playing personnel quality that Birmingham City have at their disposal increase as well. So I think it all kind of goes hand in hand. But ultimately, with this new stadium, it feels like the vast majority of its income won't come from just the Birmingham City home game we see every 2 weeks. It's going to come from concerts, other sporting events. The eateries that Wagner and Knighthead can put in place around the sports quarter as well to make it a hub for the city rather than just somewhere that people want to go once every 2 weeks on a Saturday afternoon to watch Birmingham City men's team play football.
Yeah, here's you and me debating who should play in the holding defensive midfield position, and Tom Wagner's talking about urban development or urban redevelopment. Yeah, it's. I suppose it is important not to get too wrapped up in the minutiae of the football when we are talking about something that could potentially change the city forever. I can't really think of another sort of development project that is this big. Taking place in the city. I suppose HS2 would have been it. But yeah, we're literally talking about the landscape of Birmingham, aren't we?
Yeah, I actually asked him about HS2 and how kind of important that was, because we obviously know that the Curzon Street station where HS2 is going to be linked between London Euston and Birmingham is literally a walk away from the Wheels site, and you presume they're going to put obviously make it an easy link between the two to encourage people to travel from afar. So I asked him about that, and he said it was a critical component of the success of this project. That he's so thankful that the line to Birmingham from London Euston is in place. He would have wanted the northern leg, as I think we've all gathered from his address to the Prime Minister. I think all the way back in October, November time, quite a long time ago now. But he's very happy and says that the benefits of the HS2 project to Birmingham City will be extraordinary. Having the northern leg being added bonus, but he says it's not necessary to make it worthwhile for Birmingham City. So that's clearly a big thing that has played its part in not only convincing Wagner to buy Birmingham City, but also convincing him to shell out a potential £2 to £3 billion, or his investment firm to shell out £2 to £3 billion, building this state-of-the-art sports quarter.
And didn't he say that he'd already had interest from people, other investors or companies wanting to get involved as well? So it's not starting from scratch today, is it? I
think so. Well, he said that he already knew he was going to do this project before he agreed to buy Birmingham City. So it's been in the works for a year, which I think we kind of all gathered, because I remember when the group, the Jeremy Dale group, were looking around. They were looking around different facilities at that time, about a year ago, and obviously Tom Wagner was part of that group, Gary Cook as well. So they obviously have assessed all the kind of a few potential locations, and it all came back to the wheel site being the biggest and probably the best suited. So yeah, it's something that's been in the pipeline for a long time. And Wagner said that today, that he basically fell in love with the dream of building this sports quarter at the wheel site.
Yeah, indeed. You mentioned NFL there. That resonates with me. I am an NFL fan. What about you? Is that
No, but I did really get into those Netflix documentaries. I told you about this, haven't I? The Last Chance. Is it Last Chance?
Right, yeah.
Last Chance You, yeah.
Last Chance You, yeah.
Too many breaks in NFL for me, Brian. Too many breaks.
Yeah, you're a young man with a short attention span. What can we say? I mean, I dream of the NFL coming to Birmingham. I've been following it since I was a kid. A tired and extremely weary Washington fan, who they were decent when I liked them as in when I was growing up, which ages me a lot, and they've been rubbish for 20 odd years now. So yeah, I'd love to see them play in my home city. Interesting, obviously. The NFL has got quite a bit of traction with in the UK already. They've played in London a lot. Obviously, they played at Wembley. We know that for many years. They've also played at Tottenham and Twickenham as well, also in London. But there is a precedent to them playing in more than one city in the same country. They played a couple of games in Germany over the last couple of years, and they've played in Frankfurt and Munich in Germany. So I don't necessarily think that just because the NFL have deepest roots in London, that wouldn't mean to say that they wouldn't be open-minded about coming to Birmingham. And in actual fact, I think yes, there's the London cachet, but the fact Birmingham is so central in the country, I just think people would swarm from all over the UK to watch to watch a game in Birmingham, where maybe it's a little bit more difficult for it to get down to London. So yeah, that would be fantastic for me. Wouldn't be massively keen on seeing New England Patriots, but there we go. It's just a personal thing, or indeed the Dallas Cowboys. But this isn't the podcast for me to go ranting about my NFL agendas, is it?
Brian, we're losing watchers. Stop the NFL. No, I was one of the points that Wagner made about, because it's obviously central, slap bang in the middle of the city. It's probably unrivaled. If they can do this properly and build the stadium that can be close to HS2, have all this entertainment space around it, then it could be unrivaled in this country. And he actually said in the world, but if we just look at this country as a whole, it could be, because there is no other stadium that's fit to host events like the NFL that is based so centrally. There's nothing. There's Wembley in the south. Jim Ratcliffe at Man United wants to build Wembley the north. Tom Wagner in an interview with ITV did actually not dissuade someone from calling it the Wembley of the Midlands. So it could be the hub that people from the north and the south can come and watch. Not only NFL, but they could come and watch. If England do host a World Cup in the next 20, 30 years, they could come and watch it in Birmingham. I'm sure, as you mentioned, I think on a previous podcast, that the Commonwealth Games, I think Birmingham is probably going to become its host. I reckon it's permanent host at some stage, because they can't sell it anywhere else at the moment. So there's potential for Commonwealth Games to come here again. There's potential for, in Tom Wagner's words, Champions League. So you can get all these people from the north, always people from the south. And I know HS2 slightly affected that by cutting off here and not going to the north, but they'll still find a way. They'd rather come to Birmingham than travel the extra hour and a half, 2 hours to London afterwards, wouldn't they? So it's got the potential to be transformative for the city, but also for the country, and helping people from the north watch events and they might not have been able to previously because they're closer.
Commonwealth Games. I'm not having that. I'm up for the Olympic Games, the America's Cup, and the Grand National. Let's have it all. If Tom says it, it can happen. Yes, back to being more circumspect. Alex, obviously, we can't ignore the fact that this is a Birmingham City podcast, and Tom Wagner is owner of Birmingham City, and Birmingham City are currently one place outside the relegation zone in the Championship. We're speaking before the game against Cardiff tomorrow night. What state? Where is the squad and the team and the players and the manager after that really deflating result against Leicester and ahead of what is a huge game against Cardiff?
And there it is, back down to earth, Brian. Yeah, absolutely massive. I think if you look at the Leicester game at the weekend, nobody would come away saying, Leicester didn't deserve to win, but Blues had got themselves to a point in that game where they were, 3 minutes of normal time plus stoppage time away from getting a very, very big point. And when I look at it from these final 5 games, I think Blues probably need 7 points, maybe slightly more, and that would have been a crucial point at Leicester that wasn't expected. The way in which Blues lost the game hurt, and when you think about the sheer number of late goals that Blues have conceded in this run of fixtures where they've lost 7 of 9, I think 5 of those defeats have come via a late goal, via a goal 85 minutes onwards or 80 minutes onwards. And I was looking at the stats the other day, and Blues have conceded 15 times in the final 10 minutes of matches this season. They've only conceded 63 in the Championship. So we're talking a quarter of all goals Birmingham City have conceded in the league have been scored from the 80th minute onwards. And that's a ridiculous stat. And when you consider they've only scored 8 goals in that time, which, it just highlights how kind of, I don't know if it's a lack of concentration. I don't think you could call it a lack of fitness. I just think it's a bad mentality to have. They're getting late in games and they're switching off and they're conceding goals and losing games. If they hadn't have done that in the last 4 or 5 weeks, they'd probably be 4 or 5 points better off and not be in such danger of being relegated to League One.
My fear is it. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm giving them a prayer, and I thought I'm quite confident going to the Cardiff game because Blues have beaten Cardiff already this season when they're probably at an as low an ebb as they are now. But they've got to get probably minimum 3 points from this week. And if you're looking at Coventry and Cardiff, you've got to beat Cardiff because I can't see them beating Coventry.
Yeah. My fear with the late goals is it becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that you start to feel the anxiety, don't you? And the players drop in and opponents have space and time to put the balls into their box and then something breaks, albeit against QPR. It was a bit of a wonder goal, wasn't it? But I worry about the psychological impact in the players' minds. The Preston game, seeing out the Preston game was really important. And if they could have just backed that up against Leicester City and seen that out as well, you could have pointed to a turned corner potentially. But now I just feel like the scab's been knocked off that psychological wound again. And I'm going tomorrow night nervous about what's going to happen in the last 10 minutes. I actually think the first 80 minutes you can see a plan, can't you? And you can see a level of organisation, but it's just those last 10 minutes that scare me rigid. Even now, when the game's not kicked off and Blues aren't protecting anything or chasing anything.
Yeah, I can. In the 3 games in the go route, I've seen what they've been trying to do. I actually think they've played some decent football at times as well. But a late goal against QPR when they're actually in the ascendancy and had a free kick right on the edge of their box to win. And then obviously a late goal against Leicester, which it felt like it was coming for 5 or 10 minutes before it did. But, still there needs to be more. Rowett did try and make a couple of changes to bring in on Dembele and Hogan. He said it was a brave change because he saw his team dropping back and wanted to do something that could potentially get them up the field. Those changes, didn't work. He admitted that himself, and Blues ended up losing. The away form is an enormous concern for me because, the 2 games that are probably going to decide Blues' fate are coming away from home, and Blues have lost 15 of 21 games on the road this season. That is a pretty dreadful record. Only Rotherham are worse, and we all know what's happened to Rotherham. One of those games is against Rotherham. I'm looking at that game thinking Blues simply have to win. The other one's against Huddersfield, and they probably go there and have to avoid defeat. So we're looking at Cardiff this week for that other win. And then you're just hoping that the Norwich game on the last day isn't required. Blues don't require anything. It's already settled by then. But yeah, at home, I give them a prayer because they've actually been okay at home this season. The majority of their points have come at home. If it wasn't for that fairly decent home record, then Blues would be done and dusted by now with Rotherham. So, yeah, I'm nervous, but I can't be confident at this stage. But I do think Blues have enough to get out of it. I think there are worse teams. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday definitely worse. Huddersfield definitely worse. I remember when Blues beat Huddersfield 4-1 back in, was it October, beginning of October, and I genuinely hadn't seen a worse team in the league at that stage. There are other teams in this league that I think Blues are better than. I think they're punching well below their weight, but the lack of consistency, lack of quality at times in certain areas has really cost them this season. They just need to make sure they get through it now.
I'm not sure I'm with you on there are worse teams. You know, I don't think.
Brian, over the last since October, there probably aren't that many.
No, I mean, if yes, the sum of the parts is higher than the sum of the parts at Huddersfield and Sheffield Wednesday, but the total that the team is producing at the moment, it's right down there.
Oh no, it is. As far as if I'm talking about individuals, I think they're far better than this position they're in now. But yeah, as a team over the course of the season, you know, especially since October, I mean, only Rotherham have taken fewer points. So they are where they are for a reason. And that's why I know so many fans are concerned about relegation, very concerned about relegation, because absolutely nothing suggests that Blues will get out of it from here. Nothing suggests they're going to do better than Sheffield Wednesday or Huddersfield over these next 5 games, because over the last 5-6 months, they haven't done better than those two teams. In fact, they've done considerably worse than Sheffield Wednesday. They've conceded more goals than those teams. They've scored fewer goals than those teams for a lot of that period. So you've got to hope that these players have enough about them to go into these last 5 games and secure enough points to keep their heads above that dotted line.
We've started off what was supposed to be a really positive podcast, you know, talking about Tom Wagner's plan to take over Birmingham, and we've ended up, you know, fearing the worst about relegation to the Championship and that from the Championship, and that's what I mean about, you know, this season just being head spinning. You know, the joy of Knighthead and the real once in a club lifetime opportunity that Blues have now, and yet the ball and chain around their foot is what's going around their ankle is just what's going on the pitch. It's honestly, I've seen some things covering Blues, but I cannot get my head around this season. You know the massive range of emotions and fears and expectations.
Yeah, I remember, you know, when you're looking back at the pre-season that Blues had, and then going into the start of the season, winning 3 of the first 4 games, taking 10 points. And I think everyone was talking about promotion. You know, obviously John Eustace, being the manager that he is, was trying to play it down. But everyone was talking about promotion. I remember after the game at Bristol City where Blues had obviously won 2-0, and I think they'd probably had 7 points by that stage, but they're second or third in the league. And Dion Sanderson put a tweet out saying, "Let us cook." You know, like, this is going to be a different season, and it's actually, you know, turned out to be worse than last season. You know, if you look at last season, it's the complete polar opposite to this one, because in the background you had owners who were mute and didn't talk, didn't communicate with fans, but you had a team who definitely weren't as talented as the group Blues have got now, but they'd actually connected with the fans again, and, you know, they ground out enough results to keep Blues in the league quite comfortably in the end. Whereas this team, in some games, especially recently, when I think of the Middlesbrough game, the way they lost at Ipswich, the way they lost at Millwall, is going down with a little bit of a whimper. Yeah,
indeed. Which I suppose brings us to the full circle. Let's go back to the positivity. You know, Tom Wagner said that even if relegation happens, it's a mere blip on the radar, and it's not necessarily a big impact on the direction of the club. Just another hurdle to overcome. I hope the players don't listen to that and feel everything will be okay. You know, they've got a job to keep the team in the Championship. That for me is paramount, because there are no guarantees about when you come back from League One. But But I suppose we are duty bound to state the fact that today has been a positive day in the history of Birmingham City. We've seen some really exciting ambition and some details about that ambition as well. And as I tweeted earlier, it's so much more. It's about so much more than a league position. It is about the direction of a football club, isn't it? And you came out of that meeting today, really, really excited and bouncing, didn't you?
Yeah, didn't you? Brought me right back down, Brian.
Well, that affects on most people, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think we've got to cling on to the hope that this new stadium and vision that Knighthead have for Birmingham City can transform the club and make sure that we're no longer talking about relegation battles and late goals being conceded, and that there is a brighter future. I mean, relegating to League One would be awful, because none of us want to go and watch League One football next season. We want Birmingham City to be in the Championship. We want them to be one step close to being in the Premier League, which is ultimately where Knighthead want to get to. But I suppose I don't want to be that person who says, but it has kind of reinvigorated some clubs. But if you look at the likes of Ipswich, they're probably a good example that if you do go down and get things right when you go down, that you can come back up and be a lot stronger than you once were in the Championship. I mean, they're in contention in these final five or six games to go and get back into the Premier League, because they've got an outstanding coach and they've clearly had him for 2 or 3 years now. They've had the same group of players, have worked on a consistent style of play, and are reaping the rewards. It can be done. I definitely do not want to have a season or 2, 3, whatever it is, in League One. But it was encouraging that Tom Wagner was so confident in his response that it wouldn't change anything. Whether he's saying that after 2 or 3 years in League One, we won't know. Hopefully, it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, and it's only fair to end on the note that Tom Wagner started the day on, which is one of positivity, one of excitement, one of the rest of the Birmingham City's future, which is tremendously exciting. It's going to be a new stadium. There's going to be a sports quarter. It's going to be a fantastic facility and part of the city. And, for that, we are nothing but grateful and excited. So whatever happens over the next 5 games, 24 days, whatever you do, keep right on. And thank you, Alex, for your time. Thank you all for listening. Hit subscribe if you haven't already done so on YouTube. And we'll be back later this week after the Cardiff game. So hopefully we'll be sitting here with 3 points in the bag and a very rosy future.